All right, Larry Kruger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. But first, a little mention for Pig and a Pickle. Two locations there in Emeryville and Corte Madera, and they're open 7 days a week in both spots from 11 a.m. until 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Go say hi to Damon, go say hi to Mary, and tell them that Larry Kruger sent you. Get the brisket. Get the brisket chili. It's absolutely mouth-watering. You're going to love it. Once again, thank you to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, let's talk a little 49er football. Kyle Shanahan, Niner head coach, said on Wednesday that the Niners were going to look at potential kickers to sign in the event that rookie kicker Jake Moody, who's recovering from a strained quad, isn't ready for week one at Heinz Field against the Steelers. In fact, John Lynch, the general manager, was surprised at how many teams needed kickers. Here in late August, early September. He also added that Jake Moody's recovery is going well and that he's tracking well for week one. But Adam Schefter of ESPN is reporting that the 49ers have signed kicker Matthew Wright. He's an undrafted free agent in 2019. I should say he was an undrafted free agent in 2019. He played at Central Florida, and he goes to the practice squad. So Wright has kicked for the Steelers, the Jaguars, and the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's had a lot of success. Matthew Wright is 40 for 46 in his NFL career. And that includes being 11 of 14 from 40 to 49 yards out. He's 6 of 8 from 50-plus yards out. So this guy's a pretty good kicker. And then Wright is 35 of 37 on PATs. That's been his history. So good for the Niners. They found a kicker who's a fallback option if Jake Moody's not ready to roll. And Matthew Wright's got experience, which is great because you never want to throw a rookie into that situation if you can avoid it. And he's also a guy with an accurate, strong leg. So, you really can't ask for a whole lot more. He'll fill out the Niner practice squad and give them an option just in case Jake Moody can't go. Now, to me, it really is interesting. It's obviously kicker insurance for Jake Moody with the quad injury. But, the one thing about Heinz Field, or the stadium formerly known as Heinz Field, it's a very difficult place to kick. You're talking about a grass surface. You're talking about high winds. They say it's one of the toughest stadiums in the entire league to kick in. And here's a guy that's got success kicking there and experience kicking there. And, even if let's say Jake Moody's quad is, I don't know, let's say it's 75%. Heck, even if it's 90%. I may want to go with Matthew Wright in week one at Heinz Field over the rookie just because, one, he's not a rookie, and two, he's kicked in Pittsburgh. He's got experience kicking in that stadium. And if you talk to the kickers, they'll tell you, man, they do a great, deep dive on the intricacies of and the nuances of kicking in all these individual stadiums with their different wind patterns, different surfaces. And if Heinz Field really is that difficult to kick in, and you've got a guy who's actually kicked there, before and has experience, that might actually be preferable in week one to the rookie Jake Moody out of Michigan, who obviously kicked in the Big House. There's over 100,000 people. I think the Big House fills like 110,000 or something like that. So Jake Moody has kicked under pressure. There's no question. And when you're kicking field goals in front of 100,000 people, you've faced pressure before. Jake Moody also played at Michigan. And in the Big Ten, we're out here on the West Coast, we don't really realize it, but from mid-September on, you got some pretty rough weather in the Midwest, and most of those are outside stadiums. And there's lots of weather late in the year. There's lots of, you talk about snow and wind and wintry conditions, and it's very, very difficult to kick in the Big Ten. But a guy like Moody's done it in the Big House. He's done it in cold weather. His nickname is Money. And Jake Moody, did nothing but was perfect all summer in training camp. Now, Jake Moody did miss a couple field goals in the preseason. Before he suffered the injury, he had missed a couple. He also missed a PAT. But according to John Lynch, he said Wednesday that Moody's recovery is going really well, but we'll be prepared for anything. The Niners also have Zane Gonzalez on the roster, but he landed on IR, season-ending IR. So they put Zane Gonzalez on the injured reserve before they pared the roster down to 53. What does that mean? That means Zane Gonzalez is done for the year. He suffered a right calf injury during pregame warmups ahead of the preseason finale against the Chargers, and that's it. So Zane Gonzalez is on injured reserve, but he's done. He can't come back. So Gonzalez might as well not be on the team because he can't help you this year. Moody's a rookie with a legendarily strong leg, and he's coming off a quad pull. And to what degree he is he 90%? Is he 80%? Is he 75%? Is he 50-50? I don't know what he is. Lynch said he's tracking well and things are looking good. But even if he is tracking well, I think I might prefer Matthew Wright in Pittsburgh going against his former team over Jake Moody in week 1. It's just simply because he knows that stadium. He knows the turf. He knows the winds. He's got experience there. And also, once you've been in the track that Matthew Wright's in, where you've kicked in the NFL for a couple years and you've been on a couple teams and you've experienced, the cut down and getting cut and being on different teams and with different coaches. I just think there's a level of resiliency that you take on by life experience that you probably just don't have if you're Jake Moody and you've been a star kicker at Michigan. And then the 49ers invested a third-round draft choice in you. You've been out here on the West Coast in near pristine conditions all summer, kicking in Santa Clara, California. And now you got to go into, Heinz Field in Pittsburgh and mix in week 1 pressure and not being familiar with the surroundings, not being familiar with the turf, not being familiar with the wind patterns. All things being equal, I'd have to really be convinced that Jake Moody was 100% healthy, in a great frame of mind, and on the heels of a phenomenal week of practice. Otherwise, I'm going with Matthew Wright. I really am. I pull him off the practice squad and go with him. Once again, he's 40 for 46. And you're talking about a guy who can hit long-distance field goals. 6 of 8 from 50-plus is pretty damn good. And then 35 of 37 on PATs. The Niners found themselves a veteran kicker who also has experience and has an accurate, strong leg. So, man, for the end of August, the 49ers have been very, very fortunate. Robbie Gold's still sitting at home. Now, they're not going to call Robbie Gold right away because if you put him on the roster week 1, you're going to have to pay him $5 million or whatever it is. You're going to have to pay him the full salary. And they're not going to do that. They still have a lot of belief that Jake Moody's going to be their guy. Listening to Lynch and Shanahan, they're confident that Jake Moody's going to be the Niner kicker for the foreseeable future. He might be their kicker for the next decade or more. So they're going with him. But just because you're going with him long-term doesn't mean that you have to go with him at Heinz Field in week 1 if you feel like you got an alternative that might be better. So that's going to be an interesting decision as we get closer to September the 10th and that week 1 tilt in Pittsburgh. Do the Niners go with Matthew Wright or do they go with Jake Moody coming off the quad injury? Definitely something to watch. All right, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. And thanks to all you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.